The Raiders may have just created 3 major roster problems without even realizing it. A late defensive signing suddenly looks like a serious roster threat. Aidan O'Connell may have played himself into another team's radar. And now, after one preseason game, the quarterback situation in Las Vegas may not be nearly as settled as everyone thought. Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button if you want the fastest NFL updates on the planet. Let's start with the move nobody was really talking about. Hashtag Patrick Johnson is making this decision much harder. When veteran defensive end Patrick Johnson arrived in Las Vegas just before practice, it looked like a simple depth move. Nothing dramatic. Just another veteran brought in to give the defensive line some extra bodies during training camp. But Johnson clearly didn't get that memo. In his preseason debut, he immediately made people notice him. He played only 26 defensive snaps, but he packed a lot into those snaps. Johnson finished with 6 tackles, 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 3 tackles for loss. And he wasn't only making plays on defense. He also contributed on special teams. That matters because Johnson wasn't entering a roster battle where the Raiders had plenty of room. He was trying to break into one of the most crowded position groups on the team. Then came the matchup with Houston. And that's where things got even more interesting. Johnson started alongside Malcolm Kuntz and played 37 defensive snaps. He finished with 4 tackles, 3 of them solo, and 2 tackles for loss. But one play stood above the rest. In the third quarter, Johnson came through with a sack at a critical point in the game. That play helped change the momentum. Las Vegas got the football back, moved down the field, and eventually scored its first touchdown of the game. The Raiders ultimately escaped Houston with a 22-20 victory. So here's the question. Was Patrick Johnson supposed to be a camp body, or has he turned himself into a real roster candidate? Because his numbers are starting to make that decision uncomfortable. Johnson produced 3 pressures against Houston, including the sack, along with 2 quarterback hurries and 3 run stops. His pressure rate was 10%, and he wasn't targeted in coverage. Those aren't superstar numbers. But for a veteran fighting for a job, they're exactly the kind of numbers that get coaches' attention. And now comes the difficult part. Las Vegas already has Max Crosby, Clavin Chasen, Malcolm Kuntz, and Kieran Crawford competing for defensive end snaps. There simply aren't unlimited roster spots. That makes Johnson's special teams value incredibly important. Over 5 NFL seasons, he has played 1,328 special team snaps. That's experience. That's versatility. And now he's showing the Raiders that he can potentially give them something on defense too. His competition includes undrafted rookie Kean Sloan, who is also flash talent. But Johnson has something a rookie doesn't have: years of NFL experience and a proven ability to contribute in multiple roles. The Raiders have until August 30th to make their final roster decisions. What once looked like an easy cut may now be a real debate. And that's only the first roster battle. Because the quarterback situation might be even crazier. Hashtag Aidan O'Connell just changed his situation. The Raiders' 22-20 comeback against Houston wasn't simply about the final score. It may have also changed the market for Aidan O'Connell. Fernando Mendoza received the early attention, as expected. The first-round rookie started the game and played the first half. But the performance was far from perfect. Mendoza completed 8 of 15 passes for 86 yards. He also threw an interception that was returned for a touchdown and took a sack. Then O'Connell entered. And suddenly, the offense looked different. The veteran quarterback helped lead the Raiders on 3 scoring drives in the second half. He didn't throw a touchdown pass. But that's not really the point. O'Connell stepped into a difficult situation, surrounded by players competing for roster spots, and helped the offense find a way to move the football. After a rough preseason opener against Arizona, that response was important. Against Arizona, O'Connell completed only 4 of 13 passes for 85 yards while the Raiders went scoreless on 3 drives. Houston was a completely different story. O'Connell looked calmer, more comfortable, and more in control. That's exactly what a quarterback fighting for his NFL future needed to show. His career numbers also explain why another team could potentially become interested. Through his first 21 games, O'Connell has thrown for 3,922 yards with 20 touchdowns and 11 interceptions while completing 62% of his passes. He has also shown that he can produce against AFC West opponents. Against the Chargers in 2023, he threw 4 touchdown passes, the best single-game touchdown total of his career. Then in 2024 against Kansas City, he produced a career-best 340 passing yards along with 2 touchdowns. So why does that matter now? Because O'Connell isn't simply trying to win the third quarterback job. He has publicly made it clear that he wants to become a long-term NFL starter. And sitting behind Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza could make that extremely difficult. This is where things get fascinating. If Mendoza is ready to become the future of the franchise, O'Connell could become an attractive trade piece. The Athletic Sam Warren has suggested that a trade is possible. Imagine another NFL team suddenly loses a quarterback to injury. That team needs someone who knows the system, has NFL experience, and can step into a game without completely starting from zero. O'Connell could become that player. The Raiders could potentially turn him into a late-round draft pick instead of risking losing him without getting anything in return. Teams such as Miami or Atlanta could potentially need additional quarterback depth depending on how their situations develop. So, Raiders fans, here's your common challenge. If another team offered Las Vegas a draft pick for Aidan O'Connell before the roster deadline, would you trade him or keep him? Drop trade or keep in the comments. Because this decision could become much bigger than one preseason performance. But there's another quarterback story that could completely change the picture. Kirk Cousins isn't automatically safe. For much of the offseason, the Raiders' quarterback plan looked simple. Kirk Cousins would start. Fernando Mendoza would learn. Aidan O'Connell would compete for the backup or third quarterback role. Simple. Except head coach Clint Kubiak just added a little uncertainty. After the Houston game, Kubiak was asked whether Cousins could officially be considered the Week 1 starter. And instead of giving everyone the answer they expected, he stopped short of making the decision final. That matters. Because the Raiders have one preseason game remaining. And Kubiak made it clear that players shouldn't assume their positions are locked in yet. Cousins remains the experienced option. He signed a fully guaranteed 1-year contract worth $1.3 million, according to Over the Cap, and entering the season he was widely expected to take control of the offense. But Fernando Mendoza was selected with the first overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft for a reason. The Raiders believe he can become the future. The real question is how soon that future should begin. Mendoza's Houston performance didn't settle the issue. 8 completions on 15 attempts for 86 yards. 1 interception. 1 sack. That's not a disaster, but it certainly isn't the kind of performance that makes a coaching staff stop asking questions. And that's why the final preseason game matters so much. The Raiders are scheduled to face the San Francisco 49ers on August 27th at Allegiant Stadium. That could be Mendoza's biggest opportunity yet. If he protects the football, makes quick decisions, moves the offense, and shows the coaching staff that the moment isn't too big for him, the conversation could change very quickly. On the other hand, if Cousins continues to look like the safer option, there is no reason for Las Vegas to rush Mendoza into the starting job. That is the balance Kubiak has to manage. And remember, Cousins did not play against Houston. The Raiders chose to rest many starters after their joint practice workload, so the decision wasn't necessarily a sign of anything negative. But it did leave the spotlight on Mendoza. And now he has one more chance to make his case. #3 decisions could shape the Raiders' season. Think about where Las Vegas stands right now. Patrick Johnson arrived as a late veteran addition. Now he's forcing the coaching staff to seriously consider keeping him. Aidan O'Connell entered Houston after a disappointing preseason opener. Now he may have increased his value enough to attract attention from other teams. And Fernando Mendoza entered the preseason as the future face of the franchise. Now he has one final opportunity to show that the future could arrive sooner than expected. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins remains the veteran who could give Las Vegas the safest path into Week 1. That's a lot of moving pieces. And the clock is running. The Raiders have until August 30th to finalize their roster. So the next preseason game isn't just another exhibition. For several players, it could be an audition that determines their entire NFL future. Patrick Johnson is fighting to prove he belongs. Aidan O'Connell may be fighting to prove he deserves a chance somewhere else. Fernando Mendoza is fighting to prove he's ready. And Kirk Cousins is trying to show why experience still matters. Which of these situations will have the biggest impact on the Raiders in 2026? Is Patrick Johnson about to steal a roster spot? Should Las Vegas keep Aidan O'Connell instead of trading him? Or is Fernando Mendoza about to make the quarterback conversation completely different? One thing is certain. The Raiders have far more decisions to make than they did just a few weeks ago. And the final preseason game could provide the answers.